Hello everybody, this is Style Eagler here with a Heroes and Generals video. Now today, I found out under the settings that you can change the title theme to something else, which is great because I think I was going to go crazy if I had to listen to the main one for another second. Now, between the three fractions, you have to figure the positive aspects, such as the soldiers, the guns, the vehicles, whatnot. But something else to consider is what will happen if you don't choose a faction. For example, you go to the Russian faction, you see this PTRD, and it's just pretty much the best gun to ruin your day. But if you're on the Russian faction, you won't have to deal with it as much because it's your ally's gun. Now, this is pretty much going to be the trend of the video, starting with the American faction, and then right back to the Russian after the German faction. Okay, so something that you really don't need to worry about if you don't choose the American faction is their infantry. Now, maybe it's just me, but between my experience with I used to have this tank crewman as an infantry before I stupidly changed him to an infantry. I don't find their guns to be all that threatening, and I've used a lot of them. And by used, I mean picked up a lot of them. And unless it's some weird recon who has like a really high fire rate revolver, or the Johnson, which I'll admit this is actually a really good gun, their infantry are not really that hard to deal with. However, what they do is the American infantry is the most likely to camp out of any three. And when I think of camping soldiers, it is most certainly the American faction. Like, yeah, I have encountered some German and Russians camping, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but this is probably like some weird bias that I have, and chances are it's going to be what's going on throughout the whole video. It's always an American infantry or a paratrooper who's going to be camping, and it's like equal chances from what I've experienced. It's like if you're not going to play the Americans, then you always got to remember, and do not ever forget, you go to a point, you have to check around the corner of each room to make sure that they're not camping. And I'm not talking about like the camp in a higher floor, but just the straight up corner. It doesn't matter if it's the factory or if it's just the typical house that you see all over the place. That's pretty much the one annoying thing about the infantry. Not their guns or the weird special things like the Russian PTRD or whatever, but that is what you remember about American infantry. And it doesn't. I know in the video I'm going to talk about guns and stuff, but just how the American players work. If this is just I don't even know. I want to move on. So as for their paratroopers, if you're gonna see an American paratrooper, they might have an M1 Garand or maybe an M1A1 carbine, but definitely, most likely, if they're one of the good paratroopers, at least after playing so much, it's the Johnson LMG. Like, I don't know why infantry get to have this gun while the German soldiers can't have the FG-42, which is like a similar but not as good equivalent of this thing. But geez Louise, this is just the most welcoming thing to see when a paratrooper falls down and they just have this amazing beast. And I've played as a paratrooper a lot, and it's very easy to just throw out your parachute, land, and then just kill someone before like raiding at a certain point. That is what you'll have to face if you pick a different faction. You go against the Americans with paratroopers. Look forward to this crazy high fire rate and stable freaking monster. And that is what you will remember when fighting against American paratroopers if you don't play with them. But it doesn't end there. It seems like Americans just have this. The American soldiers like have really built up this crazy bias in myself. It's also their recon. Like all 5 kinds of soldiers, except for the general, of course. Their recon have also left an impression on me. It's kind of weird how they've done that. So a recon with their Springfield and their like 8x zoom scope, what they'll do a recon, when you pick a recon, you get like a default scope of like 2x for Americans, 3.5 with the Soviet Union, and 4x2 with the German faction. And it must have been like the American soldiers figured out like, oh yeah, we're going to become recons, but it's going to suck since everyone wants to kill a recon, because recon soldiers, no offense, actually yes offense, if you play often as a recon soldier, then chances are you already know that you're annoying, but I'm sorry to remind you, but yes, recons are annoying. And they figure out like, oh, we have this stupid 2x zoom scope with a bolt action rifle. Everyone's going to kill us because if you don't actually have a high enough zoom, or your graphics card just really sucks like mine, then your enemy soldiers won't even appear when you zoom in your guns. So they figure this out, like they have a 2x zoom scope only. So what recons have that's exclusive to them is that unlike infantry soldiers who can only get like a like a low zoom in scope, like this one, this Gewehr has you can only get a 4x zoom. Recon soldiers can get all the way up to the 8x zoom scope, and that's how they're able to kill you from like across the map so far that you don't want to deal with them. It's because of these scopes right here. Like, it's expensive to go from a low-ranking gun all the way up, like the ribbon, I mean, all the way up to an 8x zoom scope. Like, it's rank 11. It takes a long time. But they're like, okay, well, since we already got this stupid soldier, whether they change their infantry through the career options here over to a recon, or they must have like just bought the scope like with gold, which is very expensive to boost your ribbon with gold and then buy the scope. It's like here, let's take a look here with with this low-ranking M1G I have. Check the ribbon. Yeah, that's a lot of gold just to go up one rank, and I don't even have the zoom like scope yet, and then that's still another bit of gold. That's like, okay, I'm sorry, this video is mostly going to be on Americans. I checked my script, it's mostly on these guys, not as much with the Germans and Russians. But I'm still not done yet. Like with recon, that's that. But then tanks, the Americans have the Chaffee with their light tanks, and when you get into the game, I forgot about this. You're gonna be facing like light tanks the most. That's what the game assigns. Like if you're going in as a tankman, the game will assign you to a match that has only light tanks. And in war matches, it can be a little bit different, but I don't think generals are really like to spend a lot of money anyway. Like, you go to a war match and they just give you infantry, like, oh, thank you so much. But you'll be facing a lot of light tanks, and then you have this M24 Chaffee, and this I will never forget. This tank right here. There is no tank within the German or Russian faction that matches this Chaffee in terms of light tank matches. They're just so fast, they're so strong. It's like the starting tank you get, the M2A2, except this time it's stronger and it doesn't have a stupid second head, which makes it so you can't turn right. This Chaffee is a monster, and I will never forget it, because the only way you can effectively deal with it is if you go out and you get like a bazooka, which costs a lot to repair, or you have to walk up to them with a mine, which you have to hope they run over, or with a German tank mine, whatever it's called. But the thing is with that is that they're going so fast you probably won't be able to run up to them, and then just because of bad luck you'll end up dying somehow anyway. That's my experience with dealing with those tanks. And then if you don't do anything, then they'll just kill you, because that's how this game works. And the very last thing, I promise I won't talk about Americans for this long, the pilots. Now, what about them? What sticks out? Well, again, this is probably like a player only thing, but for some reason Americans, they have, like, with the heavy fighter plane, excuse me, here, let me show you. The heavy fighter planes, between the three planes you can get, whether it's the weak Renaissance one or the really fast pilots. Then there's also the heavy planes. They're strong, they carry multiple bombs, unlike the other two here. I get killed by the P-38 Lightnings that the Americans have every single match, and they always know where you are. If you are walking without any cover, they bomb you. If your vehicle, like a car, exists, if it exists, it will get blown up by these American P-38 Lightnings. I don't know if they have like an easier bomb trajectory or what, or if it's just like the Americans are just pro for some reason with these planes. It's crazy how good they are, and it's every time. If you see this symbol right here with a infinite symbol with a triangle and two little lines, and you're facing off against the American faction, you are doomed. You are, God, okay, I might need some water later, but okay, I'm done talking about the American faction. I don't want this video to go on too long, but it's everything but the infantry I find about the American faction, except for generals, that are just so, like, I don't know what it is about them. They're just so, I think you get my point already. There, let me drink a little bit of water, excuse me. Looks like I'm going to have to title this video Rant and Guide like my last one. Anyway, German faction now. I think the German faction is like the opposite of the American faction. Their infantry are really good because they have amazing weapons, and I'm not kidding you. Not just their tier 2 weapons like, the MP40, which is like the equivalent of the Thompson, or the Sturmgewehr, which is like the AVS or the M2 carbine. It's their tier 1 guns as well, except for the stupid model 1934. That gun sucks. But you buy like 50,000 gold on this, or excuse me, credits on this tier 1 machine viewer, machine pistol. You get my point. This is a very strong tier 1 machine gun for a couple of reasons. when you use this, it doesn't have the stupid iron sights like the M1 Grease one, or whatever it's called, the Tier 1 gun of the... hang on, let me check real quick. The M3 Grease gun. This one has bad iron sights, but the MP34 has good iron sights. Plus, Plus, the bullets are pretty strong, and it's a lot more stable than the PPS of the Soviet Union. And that the PPS, like that gun is just God. It's very discouraging to have to use this gun to get like the other two SMGs that this faction has, the Russians, I mean, because. Jeez, I can only imagine how many upgrades you need to make this thing halfway decent. It's just so bad. But anyway, what my point is that the German infantry are so strong because their Tier 1 guns, except for maybe the Gewehr 43, are really good. Like, all of these guns are so good, except for this one. Don't look at this stupid Model 1934. And even the Tier 1 Machine Gewehr 34, in comparison to the 42 version, I might even say that the Tier 1 is better than the Tier 2 in some circumstances because it's much more stable. That's just how good these guns are, like, jeez Louise. That's probably why Rito likes to freaking... I don't want to swear because YouTube is going to get all angry, but that's probably why they want to freaking, nerf the German faction so much, if I recall correctly. Their guns are so good. Of course, every faction has a good gun, but it's just like, jeez, this is just what I remember about this faction. It's really something. But I looked over the paratroopers, and they have nothing really sticks about these guys except they have the FG-42, which is good at long range and close range. So that's nice, I guess. They also have the MP-40, but other than that, the German paratroopers aren't really something to remember, so you don't have to worry about them if you choose another faction. But the infantry's, like, if they're all of these, yeah, good. I mean, if they're using a Tier 1, like MP34, you probably don't have to worry about it anyway, because chances are the player isn't as experienced, but jeez Louise. Gosh, it's just simple, like, you pick up their gun, and then you're just then you're just doing really good. If you're playing as a recon or something, like, gosh. I need more water. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. And then what sticks out about the Soviet Union faction? I've been calling it the Russian faction this whole time. I meant the Soviet Union. My apologies. Well, I looked over it, and other than typical, they have a good LMG, which is like, of course, all three factions have a good LMG, except maybe the German ones. The German ones aren't that great, in my opinion at least. It's all pretty standard. Like, they also have good SMGs. The PPS H-41 has 71 bullets. The PPS has a really good fire rate. They're still really hard to deal with, just like it's difficult to deal with the MP-40 or the Thompson. So it doesn't stick out. But, of course, I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. The freaking PTRD bolt-action rifle. If you've ever seen any players, like Americans or Germans, pick this thing up, it's because they know it's good. Of course, they get killed anyway because they have to hold it, and then the gun clips through the wall because of how huge this thing is. But they know, or you might know, I know, this gun is stupid. It's like, so you use a bazooka, and you might not miss that car coming in because the bazooka shot's kind of hard to aim. Honestly, it's slow and stuff. But this is just a gun, and not only does it just shoot past and destroy a car as you're trying to secure a point. It also has like a lot of ammo by default, I'm pretty sure, because every time I've picked up this gun, it had like 10 shots, and if memory serves, maybe it has up to 20 shots, but don't rely on me when I say that, because around 10 shots, and heck, even if it was just 5 shots, 10 shots cut in half, that's still crazy. Bazookas normally only come with like 3 bazooka shots. Jeez Louise. Gosh. Still, that's only so many players will have this gun, because you look at that price tag, and tank destruction on its own is pretty annoying, because the Russians actually don't have very good ways to destroy tanks. They do have the grenade, but grenades are always expensive, unlike the German anti-tank mines, or not mines, but like the little, screw it. Let's check, what's it called again? You know what, yeah, you know what I'm saying. But what else about, oh jeez, I need more water. What else about Russians are annoying to deal with if you're playing another faction? They're Renaissance planes. Yep, that's it. Whenever you face off against Soviet Union Renaissance planes, for some reason, just like the Americans and their P-38 Lightnings, they're just really good. Like 9 times out of 10, this video is totally not biased. It's like I say this because I've played as a German Renaissance pilot, and let's say we both start out with 48 planes. By the time the fight is over, the Germans have ran out of tickets, or the players have given up, like me, who just lost all morale. So let's say we have only 10 planes left, and we just gave up. The Russian planes still have like 34 out of 48. I don't know why they're so good. I don't have a reason. It's like almost never that way when we place off against the United States. Yes, this is probably a bias, but it's crazy. I feel humiliated whenever I go off against the Russian Renaissance planes. Ugh. I was so glad to get like a regular fighter plane. Jeez. Ugh. Okay. Hopefully I haven't blown into the mic so much, and I feel like this video has gone on for a bit longer than I expected. Why did the timer stop? I was gonna use this. Screw it. 16 minutes. That's not so bad. Okay, I think that's going to be the end of this video, and thank you for watching it till the end. I know sometimes okay, that's my last statement. If you don't play as the American faction, then jeez. I mean, it's not like it's always difficult to face off against the Americans, but if you get annoyed because you keep getting sniped more often than if you face off against Russians, if you keep getting bombed by the P-38 Lightning, if you keep having paratroopers camping in the corners, and tanks just being themselves, and the Chaffies in particular, because the game keeps setting you up versus light tanks, yep, that's what happens when you don't pick the American faction. And if you don't pick the German faction, then, well, yeah, I guess they're just stronger in general, like, they get it in general. And then if you don't pick the Russian faction, then I don't know. I guess the Russian faction, in hindsight, isn't actually that annoying, because if I'm only able to come up with 2 reasons, then well, I guess it's better to pick another faction then, huh? Nah, just kidding. Pick the Russian faction, because the Russian faction has the PTRD, and you really want to use this thing because it's